All right, so let's go ahead and start, because I think you probably have already explained to Maeve the problem that you're having. You're trying to solve, rather. So yeah, why don't you just show me the form and what things you're thinking about and what you would like the ultimate form to look like in that section.
Do you want me to share my screen, or do you want Finola to?
Yes, that would be great. Let me just make sure you have permissions. Yes, you do.
Okay. So it's just kind of this part of the form that we have problems with. The rest is okay. I'm just not sure how to go about even writing the code for this, really, because there was one way that I thought where you would just pick a code that has all of these as an option, but if you did that, you need, when you check one, you have to give like a reason and a date. So if you were to like check all of them, it wouldn't make sense, but then that means you would do like 8 individual questions, or not 8 but 6. So I don't know as well if that's as beneficial either.
Great question. So let's see. I think I like these, like figuring out a way to group this together, but I don't know if that's too complicated for what you're learning right now.
I think it might be, that's my only thing.
Which is fair. I think that the first thing to just play around with is how to get the checkboxes to look right. So what I often do in a form like this, which is the most compatible, is to just use square brackets and then with an X.
In the actual checkbox itself.
So I don't think the checkbox may or may not actually end up working. You may have to just get rid of that literal box there.
This one
and
here, okay.
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay, so it's a table. So that's helpful. So you're not going to want to delete the row. You're just going to have to delete it one at a time. It looks like delete one.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, interesting. Let's take a look. What is the checkbox? Is it? No. Here, let's undo that. Is it like the borders of the cell? I'm not sure how. I think David recreated this checkbox here, but I'm not sure exactly how. Let's see. If you right click on it and then do cell properties, table properties rather,
table
toward the bottom.
Oh, here, yeah.
And let's look at cell, or borders and shading rather, I think should do it.
The borders and shading, okay.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it looks like that is how he's gotten the checkbox there, but it's that's why it looks like a little funny with the line going on the side. Let's see. Do you mind if I just take remote control for just a moment?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just check to see that my assumption is right here. No.
Like the other option, if I was to do it individually, would be like ask the question, and if yes, you fill out the rest, but if no, you just go on to the next bit. But I don't know.
Yeah.
As in fill in the date if you click yes. Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just trying to see how these borders are put there. I just don't know what this thing is that's making the checkbox. Doesn't look like it is a border.
Because I know we were wondering if the code or the variable would actually go into the checkbox, but obviously then it would probably make more sense just put it to the side.
This is what I would literally do, is I would have it be an X when it's been checked and like an empty, I'll do it on a new line so it's easier to see.
Okay.
I would do like this to indicate a checked box and that to indicate an empty box.
Okay.
Because it's always compatible. Like it'll work, it won't get messed up by the font being changed or but I really don't know where these borders are coming from. So that is throwing me for a little bit of a loop here. But I think that the answer to that problem is we can just delete that whole column.
Okay.
And we'll do it fresh. So let's add a new column first. And then delete this one. That didn't help us, did it? So we add. It's a very weird little table. Okay. It's only a few cells though, so maybe it's just as easier to make a new one. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 columns that we would want there. And we could just add in the number of rows. I think it's like 5 rows or so. 6. This is the kind of stuff that comes with the territory when you're doing show the border. This is more involved than I thought. I'm sorry about that, but what I'm trying to do is just be able to see the grid lines, which I think is one of the options here that we can add to the ribbon. But it's very hard to work with tables if you can't see those. I thought there was a search option here somewhere. Let me do this. Let me just find that option in my own Microsoft Office. And Okay, it's under layout. I was looking in the wrong place. Right. There we go. All right. I want to be able to see what the table we're working with is. Okay. So this is something to keep in mind. It actually is not too big of a deal to change the formatting if you need to. You want to get it to look as close as you can to the original form, but don't feel like it's sacred. I actually kind of like the idea of having this be boxes, but they're going to be the wrong size is the only problem. They'll be like kind of giant checkboxes. So I think just doing something like that is the way to go, if we can figure out the spacing. So we want to make sure to figure that out with the space and with the X. So we're going to make this column at least. We're going to change so that there's no kind of padding, I think is what that's called. They call them cell margins now, it seems. And that should do it. Oops, I'm sorry, you're moving the cursor, which I realize I'm taking control here for a while, but let's just see. It doesn't seem right that that is taking up that much room. Like, why is that going on to new line? It's like a giant margin there. Did you see something I'm missing?
I don't know, to be honest. Well, we can make it a little wider. It can clearly fit in more, but it's not letting us do that.
Are you trying to fix a box, like a box with an X and a box with no X in the same grid?
So what we're going to do is, I'll just show you the example. So let's say we had a variable for motion, which could be its own independent variable. Or it could be checkboxes. But I think probably the simplest for you is to just use like a yes, no question. So what we would do is something like this. That would be the basic strategy here. Now it's obviously very hard to read because it's vertically formatted, but if you get it, we might want to turn that into like a non-breaking space or something. But that's the basic strategy for checkboxes that I would use, is to create a yes, no variable and then use an if statement surrounding it to handle whether you're showing brackets with an X, brackets without an X. There's shortcuts for that we could talk about later. They probably would just like add like a different level of detail to this than you really need right now, because you've already worked with yes, no questions. I'm very puzzled for why it's giving me this giant gutter here that I don't want. It's not really a big deal, except it makes it even harder to read, and it's already kind of hard to read. Like what you might end up doing, for example, is just having those if statements in another file where it's easier to read them because they'll be all laid out horizontally, and then copying them into the table once you have confirmed that they look right. Because it's so hard to read it and make sure it's correct when it's compressed into that really narrow vertical column. Look at this one more time and just see if we can play around. I don't understand. Oh, indent from left. That might be the problem. I'm not sure if that's a table-wide thing or something different, but it's worth trying. Nope. It was a table-wide thing. Let's see. Zero is zero, right? And make this zero as well. Okay, looks like some of these have different, which is okay, because actually there should be spacing for the other cells so that they're not like compressed. That's clearly wrapping at a point where it shouldn't.
It doesn't work if you tell it to not wrap, because there was a setting for that.
Well, it actually doesn't really matter if it wraps. What matters is this like space here that's giant on the right of the text. So it's wrapping earlier than it should is what I really meant.
Okay. Indentation right. You have indentation right.
Generally doesn't matter inside a cell, but that could be it.
Okay.
That's a good thing to catch, yes. Shouldn't really matter there. Let's see. Ah, that was it. Great. Okay, so it's a paragraph setting, not a cell setting. That's very weird.
Yeah.
I wonder why there was right indentation. Actually, I almost never see that. So that must have had something to do with how the rest of this part of the table was formatted. That's a good thing to look for next time. All right. So this is the basic strategy. Let me stop controlling so I'm not just... Any... is that actually what you wanted me to help you with? Let's start there first.
I think it was just kind of more how to go about it, because I was wondering, is there a shorter way rather than making it like a series of individual questions? Was there any way to kind of combine it and just have a branch off if it was this, but it would still come back to the other option?
Like to the original list.
Show me that list again. I'll stop controlling because I think it's helpful for when I was exploring. It would be kind of tedious to do that, but it's probably better for you to show me what you're looking at.
Like if you were given, I don't know, do you know the way if you were to write the code and if you were to go question and then you'd have like, did you get a motion or was a motion followed? And then instead of like having to do question, motion, question, hearing, question, ADR, like a series of questions that you could have question, if date, and then it would kind of go on to giving you the option of clicking hearing, and if that wasn't, you would go on to ADR.
Yeah, I mean, those tables are really interesting because there's lots of ways to think about it. So one thing to think about is you could just have someone list events like one at a time, and we would know whether they're motions, hearings, or ADR. That could be like a drop-down menu, and then we could combine them into one box, which is kind of what the form seems to expect, that all the motions would be in one place, all the hearings in one place, all the other court events in one place. That said, this is a limited appearance for one matter, and it's not very likely someone will have two motions on the same LAR form. I really like your instinct of like avoiding redundant questions. I think that's absolutely a great thing to think about. But we also have 6 options here. So in some ways, if we over-engineer it, you don't have the payoff. Let me just show you a couple of possibilities so that you could think about other ways to do that. And then you can decide if they make sense for what you're trying to do. So just get open a browser here. Okay, so let's do. All right, so let's say we wanted to, one way to do it would be a series of yes or no questions. So I think that the answer was going to be, that's not really a good way to phrase it, but it's a good placeholder for now. What was the phrasing? Was it something like the details or like purpose?
Yeah. I'm not really sure I understand the form. I might need to check that with someone, but I think it kind of just wants you to state maybe something about the motion. So maybe what it was for or something like that.
Okay, so that would just be a text and would show if need motion. Then we would have a date, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so that would be one style. And your point is, well, we're going to have 6 of those, and it might feel a little finicky to have to write 18 questions, motion things, right? Yeah. So there are a couple of things we could do. One would be to create an object And there are a couple of different types of ways you could think about the objects. It could be a dictionary maybe, or it could be a list of objects. It could be a list of dictionaries, or a dictionary of dictionaries, or a dictionary of objects, or a list of objects. I think a dictionary is the basic structure you would need. So it'd be something like events. And it would be what's called a DA dictionary. And I think we would want to make sure it's always gathered. And I'm just going to show you what this looks like, and we could talk about whether it's a thing that you want to look into learning a little bit more. I think it's a really helpful concept. There's a lot of stuff we haven't covered that plays into this, though. So it could be that you decide that you don't want to because it's too complex. So this doesn't really get you away from this exactly.
Okay.
What we would do is have let me think about this. Is it about writing the questions that you want to simplify, or is it about having them be like a related structure so the names make sense together that you're most interested in having be a better experience for you?
I think it's just kind of more probably like you can probably write it without having to do the question again for the user rather than every time, but that probably doesn't matter in the idea of things. I think the way we've kind of done it there would be how we might do it. I don't know what Finola thinks.
This
Yeah,
first way here.
we were thinking it could have been easier to do it per question, so you would end up having to ask 6 questions. But another way I was thinking of, I don't know how I go about it, but if a list of the 6 came up, and if you ticked which ones you needed, and then if somehow a text field or something came up where you could put the date in of each one as you tick it, if that would be possible.
Yeah, so that's kind of the first style here. Let's try that again. So I just did motion, but basically you would have these follow-up questions that come right afterwards.
Okay.
That would be one style. So let's add another one just to show what that would look like. So I think the other one was like, one of them was trial, I remember. So we could do that. And I'm not sure that need is really the right phrasing to use there. So don't feel like you would need to keep that phrasing. But I think you have like a really good intuition here, which is the fact that these are all kind of, there's a pattern for all the questions, right? And you want to honor that and not have it be, you want to have the format of the question honor the fact that it's repeated data in the table itself.
Mm-hmm.
See, that's the format that I would like it to be in.
Yeah, I think that works.
Yeah.
Okay. And another option would be like for you to store it as a list and then have a follow-up question for just the things they checked off, which could be one at a time or could be in context.
Do you mind just kind of showing us how we might do that?
Yeah, and it's going to be a lot more complicated. So it may or may not make sense to you to do that, but let's see.
Quentin,
It actually, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, Michelle, you go ahead.
I was just saying it actually might be a question that Mia has as well. So if we want to record this or if we want to.
Yeah, we're recording, and I also added Mia about this exact question. So.
Okay.
But thank you.
Sure.
What was your question, Finola?
I was wondering if the example blocks would help in any way with what you've just done in that format?
Oh, well, I'll send you this exact thing. And I don't like really the variable names I chose, so you might try to change those to something that makes more sense to you.
Okay.
One trick I'll just show you, and I'll do that in a comment block, just so it's easy for you to, in the Docx, you can use the function show if def for the optional fields. So like in that cell in the table, if you wrote it like this, then it would allow you to leave that question unanswered if they hadn't checked the box need trial. That may or may not make sense to you yet, but you would run into an error if you didn't do that. So I'm just gonna leave that for you as just a thing to keep in mind, and I'm going to link you to that function. Just to expound on that a little bit. So the point is here in your docx file, you would be referencing this right in the table, right? Like need motion details. And that would normally not work because it would require that to be defined. But there's a scenario here where if you didn't check this checkbox, you never give an answer to the details about the motion.
Okay.
Show if def is a little confusingly named, but the point of it is it will only display need trial details, and therefore the template won't need an answer to the need trial details. But it will if it's defined. It'll show it if it's been answered.
Will it show the question if it's been answered? Because that's show if is something that happens in questions. So if you can speak to that a little bit, right? Does it also show the question in some different way?
Those are really different questions. So the meaning of show if def inside as a function is not related at all really to show if in a question.
Okay, thank you.
This here is about putting information on the screen or returning a value. And show if inside the question is about whether something is visible or not on the screen. And an answer can be provided to it. This is about output, this is about input, and when input is expected or not, essentially. So I don't want you to really associate those two ideas together at all.
Okay.
But maybe, Michelle, you're asking something different, which is, will it trigger the question? Is that what you're pointing at? Will this question be asked? Is that what you meant?
I think that's also something good to answer, but I was actually asking the first question. I know there has been already some confusion about Mako versus Python about if statements. So I think it might be, it seemed like a similar confusion might arise about that. So I just thought it might be good to address that now.
Yeah, I think the key to remember is that they don't mean the same thing, even though the names are a little similar. And that is a good point. It would be easy to mix them up because the names are very similar. And there's even a function called show if, which again is not have to do with the show if that happens on the screen. But it might be something to try, and then if you run into it, come back with a question about it. I don't think we can probably head it off because it's going to be too hard to put it in context right now. But just remember it's different.
Okay.
This is essentially, here, let me just, maybe it's helpful to give a different example. So this is equivalent in your template. Remember we were using an if statement? This is equivalent to if this is defined. shorthand way of saying this. And we're really relying on the kind of implicit behavior of Docassemble, whether it's been defined or not. That's not really expressing our logic directly. If you wanted to write the long way of this question, I wouldn't actually use the if defined. I would do it like this. I would do if need trial, need trial details. This is what I would, this is the like a little bit more explicit way to do it, but given how cramped that tile is, that cell is already, I think the trade-off of readability for you as a programmer may be lost by the fact that you're trying to cram it into a cell in a docx file where it's going to not have enough room.
Before this becomes canonical, just you missed 2 closing curly brackets. But I like the point you're making about readability. In both cases, both parts of the readability, both factors.
So when it came to the checkbox style, we had a similar trade-off. And I think the answer is there's some shortcut ways to do checkboxes, but I don't think it makes sense for you to generate those on your own, and we don't have a standardized way to do it yet. I actually think we should come up with one that you can do without having to invent it from scratch. Like it might be nice. Like this. Right, because then it's a little easier to see what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense, what we would be doing there? So like, and the point here again, like the trade-off we're always trying to make is if a function name is clear and easy to understand, it actually really helps readability because you can see right away what the purpose of kind of long and hard to read text inside a small cell is meant, right? Like this is not bad because it's vertical, we can, or it's horizontal, we can read the whole thing across. But if we have that whole thing stacked where it's like only 4 characters wide and we're trying to read it vertically, it's really hard to see. And this is going to be able to fit in there better. But the downside is you need to intuit what the checkbox function does. So choosing a good name for it's important.
Yeah.
I do think I'll probably write this function and add it so it's available to people to use. But that'll probably be more helpful for your next form. I don't think you have to go back in and refactor it to use this for this one. Questions? What questions do you have right now? And I see that Mia and Jack are on the call too. So if you have any questions as well about what we've been doing, or we can catch you up. Or maybe if you have questions, we can see if maybe Sinead or Finola would help catch you up. Just as a, and then we can jump in to clarify.
Yeah, I think we're here for a different question, but yeah, not regarding the Docx checkboxes, but so whenever you're done with it.
Okay. Yeah. Any other questions, Sinead or Finola?
Just one thing that was happening on ours is when we built our code yesterday, when we put in the basic questions into the code, we would have it in, let's say, the Docx, but because it's a basic question, you didn't need to put it into the playground.
Yes.
And then when we were doing that, I thought basically when we were asking certain questions, the ones that aren't in the playground, the format kind of got messed up. So we wanted it to be asked kind of like A, B, C. C was not in the playground, and then C automatically was the front before A and B, but it has to be asked in the ABC format. So we were kind of wondering, how do we fix that? Because when I put it into the code, thinking that would like order it, it didn't affect it at all.
Let's take a look at the specific thing, and then we'll see if we can help Mia and Jack next. So show me what.
Do you want me
go ahead and do a
to
share
share?
screen. Yeah, let's see what you're looking at.
This. So, basic. If I just go move that back. So
Yeah,
on
so
this form, we have two variables. So user 0, where the name first, middle, last, and attorney user 0. When the questions are being asked, it's basically putting either this at the start of all the questions or this at the end, and the format in which the questions are being messed up. But when we try to put this into the code and how you order the questions, it has no effect at all, and it still does it the way that it was doing it originally.
Okay, so it's the order of the questions that you're trying to control. Is that right? Okay.
Yeah, and we can't because it's not in the playground.
Yes. So let's look at your that's a great question. So we'll talk a little bit about how to control the order of questions when they're built-in things. Great point. Okay. So we're touching on stuff that you haven't learned explicitly. And I think this is the right order for us to do it in. It's like when you need it, we're giving it to you because it's a lot to learn a different way. So users 0 is an object. It is not, so when you list it here in your question order block, you're just making sure that there's an object called users 0 that exists and has been defined somewhere. That is different from asking for attributes of that object, such as their name, which is what you really want to have happen. That's what you're trying to get to happen here, right? You're not trying to get user 0 to be defined. You're trying to ask a question that gives user 0's first, middle, and last name.
Yeah.
Let's take a look right above you, right above that line 11, and just look by analogy, like what's going on there with those other objects. Those are also people that are being collected in a list of other parties.
Yeah.
So what might you change about line 11 to make sure it's asking a question there and not just making sure there's an object defined called users 0?
Dot name, maybe.
Let's start with that. So just look and see what's going on above there, that you're still missing, I think, one part that is a little bit different.
You'd put another kind of word before the users.
Well, let's just look at lines 9 and 10 and see what you've done there and what you might do to make it look the same for analogy.
Do we need dot name dot first, like the full?
Yes, that's right. And I know we didn't talk a lot about what the dot notation means, but what might that kind of imply to you? If I said the reason that we needed a dot is that we're getting an attribute of an object, what would that imply to you about the name of a person? Is it just one thing, or is it more than one thing?
More.
Right, because what are the parts of a person's name?
First, middle, last.
Yeah, so actually name itself is an object. So by triggering user0.name, we're making sure there's an object that's called user0.name that's been defined, but that does not require Docassemble to ask us a question that's visible on the screen. So that's something that you're doing something, but it's not something that's visible and it's not quite what you intended, because you don't have a question that defines user0.name. You have a question that defines user0.name.first.middle.last.
Okay.
That's a lot. I will put like a little thing on the Slack about objects. In my class last year, that was a big concept for people, and people did certainly be confused. But
does that mean now that the user0.name.first that I have in the code, I have to put that into the docx, or can I keep it as user0 in the docx?
very good question as well. Yeah, you do not need to change the docx at all. So when you put it inside a docx, it is looking to turn it into text. So it's not just saying, I'm going to make sure there's an object that's defined, because it knows it needs to turn it into text that can be seen on the screen. So, and the way it does that is it says, okay, well, in order to turn it into text, I need to know the actual parts of this person's name, because that's the way I turn it into text, is I show their name.
Okay.
I have, sorry, do you want to go ahead there?
You might have the same question as me. I don't know. We've used user0 twice because it's the same information, but it wants it twice. So if I have it up there, will it get asked at the 2 points now, at the point that we want them to get asked? Or will it be the same idea again?
So that's another really good question. So even though what we're doing here is we're trying to control the order of questions by listing them in a particular order, you've already seen one way where that doesn't do exactly what you expect, because an object doesn't create a question, right? So there are things we can trigger that aren't visible to the user. What we're actually doing isn't triggering questions. What we're doing is ensuring variables are defined in a particular order. So if you make sure the same variable is defined twice, it won't have to ask a question twice. It's already defined that variable.
Okay.
So it won't trigger 2 times. It will only trigger once the first time that you mention it.
Okay.
Do you know that there are 2 other parties, by the way? I'm just noticing that on line 10, you might not want to have people always have to put in 2 different people's names.
There's defendant versus plaintiff. So it is.
Oh,
2
I
names.
see. So you're using, yeah, interesting. Okay.
I think there's still Maya's
attorney.
question, Maya and Jack's question, if we want to.
Yes. Yeah. All right. I might think about how you're phrasing those, what variables you're using, but it's not a necessary thing. Just trying to convey meaning in the interview. So I would say, like, I might actually just create new variables that are named something like client and oppose, and use other party just for the opposing party in the case. You don't necessarily have to change that, but it's something to think about. And it's easy to change later. Okay. Yeah, let's go to Mia and Jack, what your question was.
Yeah, so here, do you mind if I just share my screen?
Sure.
Okay, so Michelle was helping me with this earlier, and I spoke with Kate, and we need to make like it possible to have multiple docket numbers. So like instead of this code, use this code. And it's just on our form, there's not enough, like we don't currently have enough room to have multiple docket numbers, and we don't really know like what to do next. And I think Michelle had a few ideas of what we needed to do, but yeah.
Let's look at the form and see what your options might be.
Okay.
Start with that.
Do you want me to fill it out or actually just bring it up?
I mean, we can just look at the blank form.
Okay.
I guess, second. Yeah, sure. I guess you have to probably do a new share. Sorry.
No worries.
Yeah, you have to do your desktop share, right?
Here.
It's probably possible to open it in the browser. So if you just add another tab. Oh,
there
okay.
we go.
You guys are seeing it, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is the docket number section. And I think we just need to be able to have multiples show up, but it might be crowded if there is that option.
Right.
And yeah.
So is this something Kate said, like that's a common use, that there might be
Yeah.
the same motion for multiple cases? Or multiple
Kate said
docket
that, like,
numbers for one case, kind of.
Kate said that I think in family motions that like involve multiple children, and if multiple children are involved, they each need their own docket number.
Hmm.
Okay, so
it
it's
seems more
pretty
common.
Yeah.
And I think at the bottom of our thing, we have a lot of blank space, but I don't know if we can just like move around docket numbers like that, you know?
I think you should, so keep in mind, like when someone's doing this on paper, they're going to mark up the form
Yeah.
lots of different ways, right?
I mean, there is room here, but
Yeah.
not as
Not on
much.
like the front page, yeah.
So if you had 5 kids, it's 5 docket numbers, right?
Yeah.
But
Would
the
it be
motion
like
4 doesn't need as much room as it has.
I was gonna say, what about the space between motion 4 and the plaintiff petition, like right in the center? Could we say like separate docket numbers? Like if there's separate docket numbers, then we put it in the middle there.
Or
I feel like it wouldn't be that.
Yeah, make the space like right here and just go down.
Yeah, and
Maybe.
you might be saying the same thing I was thinking, which is like just move this down, move motion 4 down like a
Oh, okay.
Change
half an
that?
inch or so. Yeah.
We can? Okay, I didn't
I
know
don't
that.
see any reason not to.
Okay.
I just feel like, especially when it's like an emergency form, I'm sure they understand that this is not, you know, be like super, super perfect.
Just remember to move emergency down as well.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, good point.
Yeah. Okay. And then in regard to the code then, here, do you want me to go back to the code?
Sure.
Okay. So how,
Yeah, so that should be all you need actually, is just that code that you have commented out there.
okay, and then I would I replace wherever I have this variable with this variable?
Well, let's see where you reference docket numbers 0. I don't think you actually will need to change it at all if you just comment out the first version of the question.
You do need to change the PDF.
Yeah.
Yep, okay, but we don't need to add the new variable?
No, so that whole list of variables there is performing a function that you don't need to generally update stuff in
Okay,
there.
okay.
Gotcha.
So I can just delete this section and then take these out?
That should do it, yes.
PDF, okay, awesome.
Yeah, and Michelle makes a good point that you need to update how it's referenced in the template attachment block.
Like the PDF, when we redo the PDF, we have to upload the template?
No, you don't have to re-upload the template, but let's just find that part of the template, the attachment block itself, which I think is probably near the end of your file.
I mean, if you're going to make the docket number field bigger and multi-line, then you do need to.
So right there where it says docket number 0, sorry, I'm having trouble.
Sorry, I moved it.
Yep,
Right
so
there?
change that to just docket numbers and get rid of the 0.
Okay.
Everywhere that appears.
Which is twice, probably.
So
Oh no, it's maybe more than twice.
It's 4 times, I believe.
Okay.
Because there is docket
2
number
pages, right?
underscore
as
underscore
well.
2.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then when I go back up here,
I think you did it 3 times so far, so there might be one more place
I-
to do that. Or maybe you got it when I wasn't catching.
I think she got it. Yeah.
Is this the second attachment block?
2.
First one. You got it, okay.
Okay.
I was thinking you hadn't changed it on the top line, but you did.
No, thank you. So it's okay. So because I'll be deleting this, it won't matter, right?
Yes.
It'll be docket numbers. Okay. And then the I. What does the I mean? Just.
Oh, so it's a placeholder for any item in the list.
Okay.
So you're collecting a list of things now.
Yeah.
And so now it's going to work for like 0, 1, 2, 3, whatever total number of document numbers you end up with.
Okay. So I can just delete this section
Yes.
and then
Quentin.
Yep.
How did you do that? Wait, oh, that's Alt. Holy moly.
Didn't you teach
That's
me
gonna
Quentin
that?
change
taught me
my
that.
life.
I thought you
Quentin
taught
taught
that
me
to
that.
me, Phil. Oh, you know who
The
it
game
was?
changer.
No, I did it in the editor on my computer, not in the.
Oh,
Anyway,
it's a code mirror
that's
thing.
beautiful. That's beautiful.
Alex, I know who taught it to me. He's another developer on this.
There
Slide.
we go. I have a question, Quentin. Can I be does it have to be the letter I, or can it be anything?
Ooh.
It needs to be the letter I.
Oh,
I'm trying to
all
find
right.
the page about index variables and exactly what they are. And I'm
Because I
going to
know
put that
elsewhere
on.
there's X and Y, and and you can have like levels of iteration. Never mind. I'll go into that.
It needs to
That's
start
for a
with
different
I.
time.
And I
It
think we're
needs to
probably not going to
start
have
with I.
I has to be the first one you use. So if you want to use J on a screen, you have to also be using I on the screen. It has to be a nested object.
Okay.
It's not just up to you which one you use.
Just as a note that generally speaking, to stay away from one letter variable names when you can, when it is possible. It makes it easier to search for, and it makes it more readable usually. But
Okay.
obviously Docassemble doesn't know what you're going to use it for. So.
Okay. That's helpful. That's awesome. So
Yeah,
right
when
now,
you come up with your own variable names, yeah, I think that's worth clarifying. When you create your own variable names, make them readable and easy to search for. Very
I'm
good.
just filling out the form right now. Just because right now, if I filled out just one docket number, it would populate correctly, right? But if I did more than one, it would probably be funky.
Well,
Probably.
try it out.
Yeah. Okay. So I have it right here. Then what do you want me to do two and see what happens?
Mhm.
Okay.
Do like 4 and see what happens.
Hey, can I ask you, like,
Take
what's
it
the
to the
average like
extremes.
docket number length?
Okay, I'll put one on the chat.
Oh, like
That's
how
like
many
a real
numbers
one.
long is it a docket
Yeah,
number?
how long is a typical docket number?
So it's usually like a 2-digit year code, and then there is
Dash something.
there's a court code, which is 2 letters. So 2 numbers rather. So it'd be like maybe court 50, I think, is like one of the district courts.
Mm-hmm.
Then we do CV for civil, and then there's a 4-digit sequential number, which just like starts with a 0.
Okay.
So
So
like
that'd just be
this
good
is
to know
a
for us,
typical
like
one.
if we're gonna try to make it so we can do multiple, just how it would look. Be good to know.
Yeah. And just make sure they're different so you can see. So the part that is at the very beginning is almost always going to be just 2 digits. It's going to
So
be the
just
same
do
2
it like
years.
this.
And the last 4 digits are the ones that would change. Just so, not that that matters, but
But for just for reference.
yeah.
Okay. Just so we have like the lengths and stuff. I'll do
Yeah, just to see what we would need to start changing to fit them all.
that. Actually, I will do it as emergency just to
Yeah,
see.
see if they cross over each other.
No. Yeah, it seems like there
Yeah,
is a continuous line. Okay.
but it's good that it went there, right? Like the multiple numbers.
And one more thing I'll just point out is that when we show a list of items like that one, it
Mhm.
will be, it'll end with the word and. So like if you scroll over, if you drag and scroll over, you might be able to see what that looks like.
Oh, see? No,
You
I
You could also
You
like
can't. You have to delete what's there. So.
could
Oh,
you like command A and get it all and just put it
Yeah.
into the
see it.
Good
Okay.
point.
And then for the, oh, it's an and.
Yeah, so if you don't like that, then there's another way to get the list. So I'll put that on the code channel too.
I think for like the docket numbers that shouldn't be too much of an issue, right?
What was that question, Jack?
Oh, I just think like if there's an and in the docket numbers at the top, I don't think would that cause an issue. I mean, especially I mean besides just like taking up space. Like for a court, like if they saw an and, it probably wouldn't be.
I think that question is directed at you, Quentin.
Oh.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's kind of a decision for you on your project to see what you decide.
What it
Maybe
looks better,
Kate
yeah.
as the SME, whatever looks better.
Mhm.
Just the alternative
SME
option.
probably. Yeah.
Alternative option would be just so when you write a list, that's what you're doing. Docket numbers is a list of items that can hold more than one docket number. The default way to print it out on the screen is with the word and. And it's actually using a function in the background called comma and list. That's a built-in Docassemble function. If you want to use a different way to format the list items, I suggest using the alternative that's just called comma underscore list without the word and in it. And you have to write that out instead of doing it.
Oh, you just posted in the code. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
So that would be those 4 places that you use it in the attachment block. You would want to change to be comma list if you don't like the and being there. Another thing I'm thinking of is I had one to do, which was creating the checkbox function maybe. And this seems like another to do, which is, I'm gonna just pop these onto the MA Virtual Court issue list.
wait, so I'm just a little confused. Would I put it here if I want to do the comma and list? Would it be in front of this doc under the?
You would do it where you want it written, where you want where it is displayed, right? Where you want to display the actual numbers. Where do you think that is? Where you want the list to be. Right? Where you want the this, comma, this, comma, this, comma, this, right? Where is it that you want to see that visually?
In the PDF.
Right. So where is the information that goes into the PDF?
Oh, this stuff, right?
That would be my guess if I were trying to experiment.
Okay.
Oh, that makes sense.
Okay. I'll write that down. So if we decide that later, I'll have that in my notes, Jack.
Definitely good to know. I think Kate might be a good one to ask, see if the and isn't that big of an issue, or if it even looks, it might look even better just to have the and.
Yeah.
It might just be good to keep. But good to know for later too, because there's sometimes where it would look silly.
Yeah, and it can't hurt to know the fact that like what's happening in the background is it's actually calling this function. And if you want it to look differently, you change
definitely.
the function.
Okay. Awesome.
So yeah, do you want to get on really quick for like our AM PM issue?
Yes. Here, how about, do you want to share your screen, Jack? Because I know you've been working on that.
Oh no, so I've been working on the service by hand one, but I just really want to ask really quickly. So can you just look it up really quick? Oh, I can do it.
Oh no, I can do it. Sorry.
We're asking at the bottom of ours the time, and so on our sheet it asks if you can show the PDF at the bottom. There's a checkbox for AM and PM.
I didn't end up doing either of them. Do you want me to go back through the form?
Oh no, I mean that's fine to show it like that way.
Because I can do.
Let's take a look at it and see. So
yes, I do. So by hand.
Oh yeah.
If I choose by hand and I end up choosing the date and I choose the time, you guys can see the screen, right? Yeah. So then I choose the time and I go next. I did AM, and then oh wait, I just want to preview it.
Yeah, you can check that one side.
And then it's also interesting that this box isn't we've edited that, so that one's not showing now. We have to figure out that one too. These boxes aren't checking off. And then it doesn't say AM or PM here, but it also doesn't check off the box here.
So that's 2 questions for me. Like the first one is, do we want to keep those AM, PM checkboxes on the side? I don't know if they're helpful when you're filling it out on the computer. It's really like an aid to the person doing it on paper to not forget.
But
unless they,
yeah.
Do you think it should be showing up here at least?
If that's possible.
It definitely is. So let me find. So what we're going to look for is a function that helps you format time. So what I would do is I would look on the function page and see if I can find format time. I don't see it there. Or we could just look inside, do a full search on the documentation page and look for format time there. I actually don't have many times when I've had to do that. So I don't remember off the top of my head. This is a really realistic example of how to use the function of the, let's see. And there may not be.
Yeah, because we were like thinking about asking a whole other question to ask AM or PM, but if we could just get it straight from the time and make them not have to do it twice, it'd be so much better.
Yeah. Well, you could always do the calculation for them, right? So that's something to remember. And we can help you figure that out at any time that you need it.
Hi, Vinny.
Hey, what's up?
Okay, so let me just show you what I'm looking at. This is where we're going to want to look. So date and time objects are part of this special class called DA date time. So we're going to look for, and let me just put this on the code channel for you. You might find it faster than me since I don't know what where I'm looking for yet exactly. But what we want to
Quentin,
do is,
these hints are all on the Docassemble website, right? There's like different sets of key hints to help with all this, correct?
yes. Yeah, and it's okay to ask though, because there's a lot of information, so sometimes it's not always easy to see what you need. So this kind of implies here that that a time object should, like the default format includes AM or PM. But it looks like you can also explicitly write it out like this, birthday.format time. So what was your object called? You might have had it like service time or something.
Hearing time.
Oh, hearing time.
Okay.
Okay.
Or wait, no, sorry. Service by hand time, or yeah, we have two of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
You might consider whether you can combine those into one. It might make things a little easier for you. There's only one spot in the form for it, right?
So actually there is another. Well, there's another, if they put in their hearing, but it doesn't require, there's no bubbles for the AM PM, it's just the time of the hearing. It's on the first form. So.
Okay, but it's not two different questions.
It is two different questions.
It is two different questions on the PDF.
Yeah, because the delivery in hand is the service question, and then the other one is the hearing question. It's different questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it looks, try this, experiment with this, using the dot format time at the end of, in your attachment block is where you're going to do this. You're going to want to put something like that, dot format underscore time with 2 parentheses. And that is going to be what shows the AM PM.
Okay.
Okay.
And I would be fine. You can always ask Kate, because she knows better how picky the judges are, whether we can just take off the checkboxes for AM, PM. Maybe leave them for now. But if it's already written in there, there's no reason to write it twice.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to add them in. But thank you so much. I don't have any other questions. Vinny or Jack, do you have questions?
I was I don't know how long your office hours go, so I don't want to take over too much time. But we were trying to do the also doing the checkboxes by service by hand or service by mail. So how our code works is that at one point we ask if it's service by hand or service by mail, and it takes that and codes into whether or not they ask the time and date of each one. But we never actually get the I don't know how to get to the point where it's like, if you say service by hand, it checkbox is the service by hand on the PDF. So I'm sure it's a simple code. I've been trying to work on it this morning and couldn't get it.
Why don't we see if we can solve one of them? And it sounds like you have a couple places you need it, so it'll be helpful for all of them. So let's take a look.
So I can share my screen real quick.
Sure.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
So at one point, I mean, I think we were just kind of going over it as well, but at one point we ask, how are you going to deliver it? And then you get by hand or by mail.
Mhm.
And we get then it kind of goes into sub questions about, okay, if it's by hand or by mail, when was it? And you get the date and the time, or by hand, you get the time. And it takes that into this, but at the bottom, we never really get a, like if I could just get like, if service by hand is true or something like to get the checkbox.
Mhm.
I just don't know how to add that. Every time I've tried, I got an error.
So it was called,
Or like,
what's the name of the variable where you ask for how they're doing service?
I believe it's service method.
Service method. And it can equal
This one?
either by hand or by mail. Okay. So let's
Yeah.
copy service method to start into our clipboard. And let's go to the first place you want to say whether it's by hand or by mail in the attachment.
On the attachment?
Yeah.
So we have like this, service by hand, and we have service by mailing.
But they aren't triggering the actual.
They aren't doing anything in the actual PDF.
How did you define those?
And that's we really don't define them. We just kind of use them to get to the other questions, because I think we just use them here.
Yeah.
And we never actually like take them in for anything else.
That should do it though. Let's see. I'm surprised that's not being triggered, but it could be because
we also have like that section commented out. And maybe this.
I think that's right though. I'm pretty sure I remember we were doing that together the other day.
Yeah.
All right.
You helped me with that.
Let's copy that, those variable names, service by hand and service by mail.
Yep.
Make sure
So
that those are mentioned. You can just do.
Oh, like search them.
Let's add them to our code block so that we make sure they get a definition. Because I'm wondering if somehow they're getting like kind of.
And which code block?
The one that you use to control the order of your questions.
Oh.
Just probably called interview_order as part of the name of it. So in the search box, if you put order, I think you might find.
Yeah, that's where the table. Great.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
You found it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So in this section, I was actually looking at this earlier too. In this section, we never really care about the service method, or like the what's it called? We just ask if ready to serve. If server method is by hand, do the date, else do the mailing date. But we never have like service method or service by hand, service by mail.
Okay. Well, right after that.
Yep.
On a new line that's not indented, or it's indented just one level, that is.
Is there like a better way to like not indent besides like backspace, or is it just?
I don't think there is. I think just backspace is the best way inside CodeMirror. So
got it.
Which is this online editor you're using. So just copy in that variable. So Control-V, and then service by hand, do that one too. That'll definitely make sure they get a definition.
Okay. And if they said yes, and it goes to the PDF, it should do a checkbox?
It should. Let's see, it should, yeah, it should. It should check the box. If it's not doing that, it could be that there's a problem in the way that the field was created in the PDF.
Okay. Because yeah, the field is just, I can go back and check, but it was just like a checkbox, like as the PDF, like the.
It was a checkbox, like the way it should be.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, whoops. I hate the top. I can't see. How do I hide?
You can drag us out of the way. Or no, it's because of the view options. Okay, never mind.
How do I like get it? I got rid of it last time and I couldn't get it back up.
I think you can drag it over to the right or the left.
Oh, I see. Okay, perfect. Let's get back. Okay. So yeah.
You can leave most of those blank. Just.
Oh, so it has to be. Yeah, it has to be an actual email. Okay. And you guys can still see my screen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. Hopefully this works. I just hate that you have to go through the entire thing every time.
I
It's
understand.
always
Yeah.
just, especially when it's like the last issue too.
Yep. There's some
Very-
techniques to help with that we can talk about, but it's just, in general, it's just a really tedious thing you have to live with, unfortunately.
Sorry.
Oops.
And then by hand, and then time and date.
I'm actually really curious to see if this fixed it, because I'm surprised that would be the problem, but let's see. We'll see. Okay, so it should be checked here, right? Because you
Should
did save
be.
that service already.
Awesome, yay.
Okay. All right, so
And then, yeah,
looks like that was it.
perfect, thank you so much. And then if we just add that with the Mia's new code for the, or if we do the new format time,
Mhm.
that should be fixed. Or
Yeah,
should
I
be-
just, sorry to jump back in. I just tried to add that to the end of the, like at the, in the attachment blocks, I think it's called, right?
Mhm.
And I ran it and I got an error page actually.
Let's look at that. So let's try doing it here for just one of them. And where's the time? Hearing time could be the first one we do, right?
Hearing time?
I think underscore time.
Yeah.
And we want to get the one that's in the attachment. So let's try, what is that? Is that the preview attachment?
I think this
easy
is,
for us to see. Nope, that's the main attachment.
so it's
Well,
the
just to
next
do a
one.
quick check, there
Yeah.
we go.
This one.
Okay, so just try adding dot format.
Where?
Right there, right where your cursor is. Perfect.
Okay.
Dot format underscore time. And then to open and close parenthesis.
Oh wait, wait, I'm sorry.
You had it right.
Open and close, like just like this?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then save.
And run.
Nope.
Oh,
Well, it's okay. We did save and
Yeah.
run already. It's okay. I was going to just show you a way to refresh and not have to start over.
oh yeah,
It's
because you
okay.
can just go back to this one, right?
Not anymore.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay though. It's not that big of a deal. We have just a couple of screens to go through.
And I'll run through it again. But so this should do it and add the AM.
Well, let's see the error message. And I guess we could, Mia, you could share your screen and we could see the error that you ran into too.
Okay.
I was thinking that would be a,
Yeah, I'll run through this right
I might
now.
just find it.
I can't share my screen because Jack's still.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll stop share. There you go.
I'm sorry, Quentin. Another thing that when I just looked at Jack's screen, and I'm not sure if you solved this problem or maybe you guys talked about it before. It's just making like there's certain boxes like for the contact information in that previous screen where
Mhm.
it is a required thing, but we don't have an asterisk for it.
I think yesterday, somebody, Kate said that Quentin, you were working on that because it's one of the it's one of the basic questions that that somebody else has discussed this, that when you don't fill out one, it will come up with an error message, but it doesn't have a red asterisk next to it.
Do you know which one it was? Is it about the contact methods? Is that what?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So one thing we figured out is that people don't like having that all on the same screen as the address. So I think
Okay.
all of the forms that we've published break that into 2 questions. So it's a little easier to see what's going on.
I got the error message.
Yeah, I see that.
It's got, yeah,
Yeah.
date time.
All right. So it looks like what we need to do is look a little closer at the dot time method or time object and see if that has a different method that we need. It's probably just dot format. Not 100% positive. I'm trying to see if I can find, here we go, dot time object. It's a native function. It's not a Docassemble one. And it looks like the default format doesn't include the AM PM. So I'm going to just look for looks like we're gonna have to do some like kind of annoying formatting stuff there by hand. So I'm gonna send you to the super long documentation page about what we're working with. And it may not end up being that helpful to you. Let's see if we can figure out. It's a built-in Python object. It's not a Docassemble specific thing at the time. So we're going to use something like strf time, I believe. Yeah, so. And then we're going to have to figure out these percent format stuff. Let's see if we can find an example that includes PM. It's like really clunky. But that's what you need the format to be. I know that would take a while to figure out just by reading through that stuff. I just put it on the Slack, and I'll put it on our chat as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So yeah, try that, replacing that format time with that strf time %h %m %p. So just copy that exactly from the chat. Yeah, now just try hitting save and see if you can. So let's go back to our open screen.
I have it in, like, it's supposed to be in several places, right? Because this is only one. Okay.
We'll just test it once before we replace all of them.
Okay.
But yes, it's a very good point. So open, you had the open tab there. Oh, what did it?
Sorry, I'm just trying to navigate it around the Zoom faces. Okay.
Oh, sure.
Okay, so then go here and just reload.
Yeah, try reloading.
Okay.
Do we have format time in more than one place, maybe?
Yes.
Oh, that's what you were saying exactly that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Yeah.
Do you want me to replace them all?
Yeah, or we can just delete them until well, yeah, either way. Either replace them, it's the right thing.
What do you think I should do? Should I delete them or replace them?
Replace them.
Okay.
Where does the hearing time even show up on our doc? Oh, I see. But is that part, like, I don't think, is that not, that's kind of more of a question for Kate, but I don't think they fill that in, do they?
Is it something for the judge to fill in?
It says like notice of.
Yeah, they could have a hearing time because that when they're filing a motion, they already have like something else filed. Yeah.
I see. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry.
Okay, so save. And I can't find it anywhere else, so I'm just gonna save and run. Or do you want me to just reload here?
I don't think we'll let you reload anymore.
Okay.
So it's okay.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's not a big deal.
And like the thing is, yeah, the hearing time one, and this doesn't matter because it would look fine if either one had AM, but that one doesn't have like the whole AM PM checkbox, so it might not be.
Quentin, just to go back to what Vinny was saying, this is the question that he was talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's
It says it up here, but it just doesn't have the asterisk down
Wait,
here.
Mia, what happens again if you just don't do one of them though? 'Cause
Yeah,
then it just like it makes you still stay, right?
It just says, yeah, it says up here.
That's really
So
not that bad.
Yeah.
So the reason why it does that is because we don't know which one they're going to have. So we can't put an
Exactly.
asterisk next to all of them. And we can't predict which one should get the asterisk because we don't know which one they have.
Got
I
it.
think we made the UI better by just splitting this into 2 questions. I think that helped a lot.
Yeah. Just another question that I have, just as like a side note, for the email address, if they fill out this box, I don't know if we have a field on our form that would like go into, or is that just for the form to be emailed to them?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think we should, well, first of all, this is one of the forms they asked for, so it's going to go on the cover page that goes to the clerk.
Okay.
But you might ask Kate if she thinks it should be added to the form itself.
And to be fair, like you do give your address and everything, like that is required early. I mean, like for contact stuff. And I think there's also like so many times where you get asked your telephone number. I think the telephone number. I think telephone number is also when you say like if you're a plaintiff, I think, or whatever earlier on. I think there's the contact info. I think telephone number might be asterisks. I believe.
Oh, so there's already a different question that asks for the phone number?
I'm pretty sure. So I don't think like the contact info is like that much of an issue. So I think the contact info is.
Everyone's complained about it. So that's what we figured out is we haven't gone in and changed it in the basic questions file, but it's been changed in all the interviews that we've sent out into the world because no one really likes it being where it is. It's kind of a confusing placement to see that you have to answer one of them.
We're almost there.
I really think that we should be able to get the format of the time better somewhere. Oh, we should be able to see in the preview, right?
Oh, sorry.
We should just like force the court to do military time just to make us easier.
Some
see.
do.
Oh, perfect. AM.
We have it.
All right.
God.
Great.
And then down here, got
Awesome.
it as well. Awesome.
And
But
then
it-
yeah, no, we have.
Oh,
and we
but
have,
you have to send me the other.
yeah,
code
we have like Frankenstein's going on. We have to fix it, but.
So,
Yeah, we'll
Quentin,
get
I
that
just have a quick question. If Mia can go scroll down to the second page, since now we don't need the AM and PM box, is there any way to get rid of them, or that was on the original form, so we really can't?
We actually
can talk
talked
to
about that
Kate.
a little bit. Yeah, I double check with Kate. I would say probably get rid of them, but not if
Yeah.
Kate says no. And if Kate says we have to check those, then I can help you with the formatting for that.
Definitely. But I think I feel like it wouldn't be that big of an issue to get rid of them if it says AM or PM right next to it.
That's my guess. It's really just a reminder to the person
Right.
filling in the form to do it right. I bet a judge wouldn't mind it being gone.
Unless these are
Especially
like
because it's the certificate of
scantrons.
service. So this is
Mhm.
something that's kind of rarely going to be looked at later,
Okay.
unless the
Awesome.
person says they didn't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Well, I
Thank
think
you
I'll
so
see
much.
a lot of you in a half hour, but okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.